All right, I think instead of going to my other room, I'm just going to start the camera and get it going. Shows are all done, went really well. I do with my wife a youth, musicals every year and whatever. So that went cool, and I thought, what am I going to start? And so I've been reading last night, and I took off work today, and I have started The Wounded Land, which is book one of the second Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. And the first one is called Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever, the first trilogy. This is just the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. Um, wow. Wow, there's already a lot to talk about. I am 50 pages in, which is technically three. Let's see. It's three chapters, but they call this three chapters a prologue. It's a prologue of three chapters. Um, Very cool. Very cool. I won't go into spoilers on the first trilogy necessarily. But there will be some minor ones regarding, like obviously Thomas Covenant is still around, and it has to do with Joan. Okay, there's a lot to do with Joan in this trilogy. So there was a big conclusion in the first one, and I haven't really read the back jacket right here. I haven't read this because I don't want to know exactly what happens. But I've heard mixed things. I've heard some people really love this second chronicle, and I love it so far. Look at that cover. Oop, I love it so far. It's totally taken me in. This is a very dark this is a very dark opening of this book. Each time he gets sucked into the the land, and I don't necessarily even know if he is sucked into the land at the moment. Something definitely has happened, but we'll get to that. All of this so far has been from Thomas Covenant's perspective, or as the third person narrator, really following Covenant. But this time, so far at least, I don't know if it will bounce back and forth a lot, but so far, in the second book at least, it's all mixed in my mind now. We had Hyle Troy, which was opened up, and sometimes we would go and have his perspective. He was another person that got sucked into the land, and he didn't have his eyesight, and he was this great general in the land. And it's so interesting to see how the people who get summoned into the land or drawn into the land, it's like it's like they are they have something to offer to the land, but also it's almost as if they have something to learn from their time in the land before going back. It's this very symbiotic relationship with the land, and I just am so stunned by how Stephen Donaldson weaves in these many layers of meaning in these books. For real, they are so exactly what I would be looking for in this type of thing. It's amazing. So this one starts with really the end of the last book, and this isn't going to be a spoiler of basically what happened in the land, but the structure of these books is he gets summoned in, and he fulfills a type of purpose, whatever that is, and something will happen, and he will go back to his real world, where when he was in the land he didn't have his leprosy. When he goes back, he remain he continues on what he was doing, like often just moments after, even though months have happened or years have happened, whatever the case, it's like just moments for him in his real world. And now if uh, uh, if you ever, we just did Wizard of Oz, and if you ever watched Return to Oz, Dorothy, it's much later, and she's like, no one believes her. It's been forever since I've seen it, but I think she's in like an insane asylum or something like that. And this is, I think it was 11 years after the events of the first Chronicle, and it is from the perspective of this Dr. Lind or Dr. No, Lyndon, a woman. And she has been asked. Oh, no, no, no. At the end of the last chronicle, of the last book of the trilogy, Thomas Covenant comes out at that last time after having this sort of resolution for the land. And he's learned some things, and obviously some people might still hate him and or not, but I find him to be maybe the most fascinating character in all of literature. Like, he is, I'm so fascinated by this guy. But he has this little interaction with a doctor, and it's touching and amazing, and then off it goes, and amazing ending. This opens with a doctor, this Dr. Lyndon, and this other doctor. What was his name? Dr. Baronford. He asks Dr. Lyndon to go and, uh, try to get this person to open up, meaning Thomas Covenant, because he won't really open up to Dr. Baronford. That was his name. I might change that around like a million times because I'm good at reading it, but when I don't say it out loud, I don't hear it. So, um, anyway, he sends her off to go and see what she can do for Thomas Covenant. And as she's going, like, he lives kind of off the beaten path out in the county from this town, I think. And as she's going, if you remember, or if you haven't read the first Chronicle, he has this moment where this guy in almost sackcloth, like Old Testament style, you know, soothsayer or whatever, like a prophet type, warns him to be true in the first Chronicle, and he's very startled by that. And she, as she's driving, she notices something in her peripheral, and I might not get all this perfectly right, but she notices something, and then behind him, he's there, and this kind of freaks him out, and it's almost like the same sort of experience as Thomas had. And she pulls over and whatever, and he just falls down, and he's convulsive or whatever, and she performs CPR on him, and he comes to, and then he's in this ochre robe, and he tells her to be true, tells Lyndon to be true, before basically wandering off into the night. Like, that freaks her out. That's a question to have. And so off she goes, continues on to Thomas Covenant's house, bangs on the door. He tells her to go away. And like, now we're seeing Thomas in this very different sort of lens as the first book. The first one, he was a big curmudgeon, and he still pretty kind of is. But he was so angry at the town for the way they were treating him, even though he was also being super nasty. But everywhere he went, they didn't want to be around him. He would yell, in a sarcastic sort of way, leper, unclean, and then he would keep going on his way. This time, she opened. Oh, but in the last book, the way before he is drawn into the land, there is this child who is snake bitten, and he and he tries to help her out, and he's sucked into the land, and he's like, no, 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 I want to go and help her out. So this is a change in Thomas Covenant. And the whole time he was wearing this ring that is his wedding ring, and it is like this connection to his wife who left him early in the first book because he has leprosy, and it was believed that children were more susceptible to it, even though it, it wasn't contagious or anything, but it just, there is it seems like leprosy would be just horrifying to be around, and it always seemed like the mark of just, send them away for being smelly and kind of repulsive, and just, so that's his life now. That's been his life, except for when he's in the land, and he has this VSE, I think, which is visual surveillance. It's just this practice where he looks at himself to check if he's, he has numb extremities, and he checks himself all the time. And anyway, where was I? At the end of the first part of that third book, that was he kind of got sucked into the land, but he was trying to genuinely help this girl. And then anyway, we end with the last book, and it's, he has had a bit of an arc just in that respect alone. Now, this doctor shows up at his house. He tells her to go away. He doesn't want to open up to her. And she hears this screeching sound of a woman in the house. Just a blood-curdling scream. And she pushes her way in, and she notices inside it's like all the furniture has been kind of brought away from the wall. He does these big he still does these big long sorts of walks around everything to be sure that he's not going to bump into anything. He's still very careful. And I'm not going to get all this perfectly right, but as she's going towards this room in the back, he stops her, and he says, you're not going to understand. You're not going to understand what all this is about. And it's true. Like, she's just not going to. When she opens the door, Joan is there. And Joan is, it's like she's totally lost her mind. It's like she's possessed. And throughout this, he tries to tell Dr. Lyndon that she is possessed, and not since that hasn't been taken seriously for ages. And so, as a doctor, as a scientific medical doctor, she's not going to have that. And all she sees with Joan there, Joan is strapped with her arms not able to get close to themselves, and her legs, like she's strapped to this table, and it's like Thomas Covenant is torturing her or something in her mind. That's what she perceives is probably happening. And as Thomas gets close, she like bites at him, and he offers what exactly? He offers his hand, and she like scrapes the back of his hand, and he's bleeding, and she takes the blood, and she tastes it. And when that happens, it's like she has this moment of lucidity. So what would you think if you were observing that? That would freak me right out, in this cabin, like far away, this house far away off the beaten path, and you're seeing this, and she scrapes, and he's already like this, the blood of a leper. And she has not been in the picture really since the first book, but in the second book, before he's getting summoned in, she calls him, like they talk to each other on the phone, and then he loses consciousness during that, and he's sucked into the land. And now I've always wondered, is what's going to happen with Joan? And here she is, seemingly possessed. And let me just see if I can open up. Where was that? Where was that? Because he's saying things like he. Yeah, sorry, going back just since I have that page open with this man in the ochre robe. He said, "Be true, you will not fail. However, he may assail you." He was he referencing covenant? Was he referencing like we're thinking? Is this guy referencing Lord Fowl? Is Lord Fowl back? Um. Uh. Let me go to. Let me go to. Da, 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 da. Sorry. You're trespassing. This is when they're at the door. This is private. You won't understand. I'm a doctor, she says. Retort. She goes in. She sees everything that's happening. What's wrong with her? I thought Joan says something though. I can't get him out. He's in my mind. That's what she's babbling. I can't get him out. She's in my mind. After the blood wells from the cuts that she's scraped, and then she does that. This moment of lucidity. I can't get him out. Um, and Tom puts his arm around her, like he still cares for her. Obviously, if you've read the first trilogy, he still cares about her. Um, I know, he says. I understand. Tom, she wept. Tom, help me. I will. He says, as soon as he's ready, I'll get you free. He says it doesn't hurt. He says this to Dr. Lyndon. Um, and anyway, he tries to tell her that there's this possession happening. She leaves. Uh, uh, she figures this stuff with Joan must be a psychiatric problem, but Tom is not willing to let her just be taken because they'll just dope her up and scramble her mind with whatever. And, he feels that he's the only one that knows what's truly happening. So, anyway, Dr. Lyndon goes and says, I won't do anything till I come back, but I have some stuff to see or to think about. Anyway, she goes, talks back to Dr. Barrenford. Turns out a part of the reason he was sent there is because they were both trying to help Joan, but he couldn't. He didn't understand still. Like he neither of them truly believed Thomas and what's happening. And it just reminded me of that Return to Oz where they just don't believe Dorothy. Like she had this experience, but it's been since like 1993, and I was like 8 years old. So this is my filter as like an 8-year-old watching that, and I'm trying to remember. But it seems like the same sort of situation as what I remember from that. Anyway, she is certainly seeming possessed. And she goes back, and it's like this. Let me try to get to the page. She goes, and on the doorway, there's this paint in like, well, it's not paint. It looks like dried blood in this triangle on his doorway. Freaks her right out. She goes in, she sees a shotgun, and there's just blood everywhere. Blood everywhere in the house, in this room. And I'm going to get some of the details wrong, but it doesn't really matter, especially with this Mrs. Roman. I'll skip through some of that. These people in sackcloth have come in and taken Joan from Thomas. And he's there at the couch, not knowing what, you know, it's just been this crazy thing. They wonder where Joan is. Are they going to go find her? And Dr. Lyndon, again, I might be getting a lot of this wrong, but she makes her way back to Thomas Covenant, and instead of knocking on the door, she just is looking in, and she sees Thomas just sitting on the couch, almost as if expectant of something. And then they hear, and this is through a window late at night, and Dr. Lyndon and Thomas Covenant both kind of jump with her watching Thomas in the window. And there's a knock on the door. It makes them jump. And this person comes in. And let me, because this is worth it, several hours later, as the sunset dwindled into twilight. Yes, that's when she's back. The lights were on. With all her caution, she looked at Thomas Covenant. She felt kind of awkward and almost like she's betraying something. And this person comes in, Thomas Covenant. What do you want? The hour of judgment is at hand. The master calls for your soul. Will you come? And Dr. Lyndon hasn't believed, when she's talking to Thomas, he keeps saying, this isn't about Joan, this is about me. And this is a possession about me you won't understand. Just stay out of this. But now she's viewing this interaction. Thomas's Covenant's mouth twisted into a snarl. Your master knows what I can do to him. The man did not react. The woman will be sacrificed at the rising of the full moon. Expiation must be made for sin. She will pay if you do not. This is the commandment of the master of life and death. Will you come? That's freaking out Lyndon. He eventually says, I'll come. An interesting thing to point out also during this, it seems like it was mentioned that maybe a part of this possession or a part of, it seems like there is something happening, with the connection with the land, but whether the land is real or not, the same effect, it's like something is still, how do I say this? Even though there seems to be something supernatural happening, it's almost like something deeper within. This is where the many layers happen. Like with the first book, we could see those many layers in what Thomas had done with Lena and many things, and what kind of would happen supernaturally, but also just within him. Joan had felt this guilt and remorse for leaving Thomas and left, went to live with her parents, I believe, with Roger, her son, and just left and made her way all the way back to Thomas's door, and he couldn't believe it, and she just like attacked him when she opened the door. And so yeah, there may be some layers to that. It seems so, but now he's going to come, and they don't even walk on this trail, and Lyndon's going to follow. They just walk like a beeline through the hills of this forest, and go over this hill, and they make it to this place where there are men, women, and children all in this sackcloth, and they are around this almost altar sort of stone with that red triangle and things on it, and on top of it is Joan. So super compelling, but super dark. And she's watching this. Thomas is there. This is a very different sort of Thomas. I mean, it still definitely is Thomas, but instead of being just throwing out insults and things, he is a different sort of, he's turned into a different sort of person here in some ways, where he's very angry at what's happening for good reason. And then, holy smokes, it is time. We are the will of the master of life and death. This is the hour of retribution and cleansing and blood. Let us open the way for the master's presence. So we've had Thomas experience Lord Fowl and things on the other side, and the closest we've gotten in the first book we had. Sorry, I hope you don't mind me jumping around. In the first book, we had that prophet kind of type that told him to be true, and that was a connection sort of with the land, it seems like. And in the second book, someone even called him Barrack, I believe, while he was in that bar. So that he goes and, why did you call me that? Why did you call me that? So there have been these little glimpses from the other side, like, you know, and now there's this happening, and this is so much more of a dramatic sort. And I wonder, like, I don't know what's happening in this book later. I don't know if there it will be, that line, that veil between the land and, if that will be pulled into the real world more. But this is freaky stuff. This is freaky stuff where it seems so much more like it's not just in his head. So, Covenant took a step downward, then jerked to a halt. And listen to this. A woman near the fire shambled forward. Lyndon nearly gasped aloud as she recognized the woman who had stood on the steps of the courthouse, warning people to repent. With her 3 children behind her, she approached the blaze, bowed to it like a dead woman. Blankly, she put her right hand into the flames. A shriek of pain rent the night. She recoiled from the fire, fell in agony to the bare ground. A red quiver ran through the flames like a spasm of desire. The fire seemed to mount as if it fed on the woman's pain. And one by one, even the children, they're going to offer their hand and be screeching. And as this is happening, a figure is starting to take shape within the fire. Wild. And it just keeps happening one by one. The third wave followed in turn, surrendering her flesh to harm, like lifeless tissue animated solely for immolation. Lyndon just can't even talk. She's just so struck by what's happening. A figure began to take shape in the heart of the blaze. Oh, but it's still kind of faded and indistinct. And the worshippers are, now that he's there, they're calling Master, and one of them has a knife. And Covenant rasps out in fury, "Foul, even children." As bad as we disliked Foul and we don't like what he did, I root for the guy here. I don't still have those same feelings as immediately after with Lena. Like, what the heck are you doing? Um Obviously he's a different person here, but he's still, it doesn't mean, anyone who's messed up on anything, still feels that remorse and stuff. And that's where a lot of those layers are still here too. But even children, Foul. The man with the knife came to his feet. Again, he raised his arms, brandishing the dagger. Now is the hour of apocalypse, he says. The master has come. Doom is at hand for those who seek to thwart his will. Now he will witness. Now we will witness vengeance against sin in life. We who have watched and waited and suffered in his name. Here we fulfill the vision that was given to us. We have touched the fire, and we have been redeemed. Now we will bring all wickedness to blood and eternal torment. He's crazy. And as he's about to do a Abraham and Isaac style sacrifice on Joan on this gross altar of this stone, Covenant steps forward, He yells, "Stop!" Uh, his yell scourges the air. He says, "You've done enough. Let her go. Release her." The guy holding Joan's throat. Why? Because you don't have to do this. I don't know how you were driven to this. I don't know what went wrong with your life, but you don't have to do this. Um, the man did not blink. The eyes in the fire clenched him. Deliberately, he nodded his hand free in Joan's hair. All right, Covenant barked immediately. All right, I accept. I'll trade you, me for her. No, and Lyndon's cannot believe what she's witnessing. She's seeing this man sacrifice herself for a seeming like person who's gone crazy, and she's touched by this, but also revolted by the whole situation, as she should be. um can't believe it. She's saying Tom, and as it's about to happen, she yells, "Hey everyone, they're here." She's doing a bluff and yells forward, and they all scatter, and she starts to fight this person with the knife, and she finds herself on this altar with the knife raising, and she sees the knife flash, and uh the last thing I read, then the eyes of the fire blazed at her, and she was lost in a yellow triumph that roared like the furnace of a sun. That's it. Sorry, got interrupted. So that's the last thing I've read. Is Dr. Lyndon now the main character? Like, are they both on the altar? Are they both sucked in? But that's the end of the prologue and we have part 1, Need. And chapter 4 says, "You are mine." So, wow, very cool. I that was enough to suck me into this. I was just going to try out the first thing just to see if I was feeling it, and I read all that yesterday and today, and I'm so in. So yeah, I might have comments along the way, or we will just read through the whole thing, and I'll tell you on the other end. So talk to you guys soon. Bye.